Hello. I chipped my tooth today while brushing my teeth. The struggle is real. Um, as I come to you from my lowly lit bedroom, um, I figure that this is probably the best time to do this video. Um, so I wanted my first video to be me sort of like telling my story. About how I got sober, became sober, and yeah, I've been sober for about 40 months now, um, and so about 3 years and let's see, May, June, July, August, September, October. Wait, no, that's not right. Math, not my strong suit. It's 3 years and 5 months. It'll be 6 months, 3.5 years. In the end of November. And so my sobriety date is May 21st, 2018. And I work a program in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I have a sponsor um, who I talked to tonight, and he has a sponsor who has a sponsor who has a sponsor that I live with, who's married to someone who's sober. So I have a lot of sober friends. I also have a lot of like service positions, because they say that sober to stay sober, you need to, make sure that you plug into whatever program that you're working. And I like that the fact that people who get sober don't necessarily need to work an AA program. I know several people who started out in AA and have moved on to ACA or ACOA. And there are several other fellowships that can get and help people to stay sober. Um, for me, I got sober at 38 years old. I'm from Washington D.C. I was born and raised in Washington D.C. My mom was 15 when she had me. My dad was sort of has been out of the picture for majority of my life. He's been in prison for most of my life, and I've like literally met that dude a handful of times. And I'm 41 years old, um, and I'm a very sensitive guy. I um, and my mom, she was just really young, and she didn't know how to give me the emotional care that I needed. Um, and so, yeah, oh, I don't like that. I can see you guys just fine. Yeah, she wasn't able to give me the emotional care that I needed, and I sort of learned from an early age that like you just don't really sort of talk about your feelings. She was not a very feely, touchy person. I don't even remember my mom saying "I love you" um, very often to me as a kid. Um, and from a very, very early age, I knew that something was different about me. And I sort of discovered that I was gay. Like I knew that. I knew that for a very, very long time, like a very, very young age. But I didn't know what the words were um, that it was that I was feeling. I remember that there was this one time where I was watching the news, and they had the gay pride parade on. I think I was around 10 years old. And in DC, the gay pride parade used to be like on Pennsylvania Avenue, like near the White House and the Capitol, and it's like that procession that the president walks after his inauguration. Hopefully after her inauguration, soon to be, fingers crossed. Um, and I remember like sitting cross-legged, and my grandmother. my paternal grandmother and her sister was having a conversation on the couch behind it. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, oh my god, these people are fabulous. Like, these people are, they look like they're having a great time. This is fucking amazing. And I remember my grandmother in the background telling her sister, like, oh, that's a sin. Like, these people are going to go to hell. And I was like, okay, whatever feeling you just had, you might want to keep that to yourself. And that's what I did. I buried it deep down inside. And there was a part of me that I sort of disassociated, and I was able to, like, just. It sent me on a path about lying about everything. Like, I would lie about, like, the littlest things. I would lie about my family, like where my dad was. I would lie about my economic status. I would lie about just anything, any and everything. And there was a portion of me that I kept hidden. And for a long time, I really didn't feel like I could have any real emotion or connection to people because I felt like there was a part of myself that I could not fully disclose to people. And so I just kind of like, I became a chameleon of sorts. Like, if you were into band, I was into band. If you were into, music and clothes, I was into music and clothes. If you were into movies, I was into movies. If you were into books, I was into books. Like, it didn't matter. Like, I was always easily able to be able to, like, sort of um fall into the background of whatever scene that I was in. And this would follow me for a very long time. This would follow me up until like my mid to late 30s when nobody wanted to hang out with me anymore because my drinking and my drug use had gotten so bad. Um, and I, so, and I always wanted to stay under the radar because I did not want people to know that I was gay. Because that seemed to be a social death sentence for me from what I saw and from like what I experienced from other people. I mean, we didn't have a lot of out people in my high school. There was like a few people. I only knew one person that was out who I ended up losing my virginity to when I was 14, and I didn't like that experience, so I didn't have sex again until I was 19. But I kind of dicked around in high school and I didn't know what to do, and my parents didn't have any money, and well, my mom didn't have any money. And so I decided I was going to go into the military, and I was 17 years old. And I remember I was with a bunch of friends, and we were watching Full Metal Jacket. And for some reason, I had gotten it stuck in my head that um, that movie was about the army. And like, so the next day when I went to school, and there was like a row of recruiters that were like hanging out, and the army guy was like, hey, you should come sign up, you should come join the army. And I was like, fuck that shit. And I went straight over to the Marine Corps table and I signed up at the age of 17. Now the joke was on me because if you ever seen that movie, you know that movie was about the fucking Marines. So there's that. So I was like 17 years old, and I remember my mom was like, "Oh my God, are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. This is, And I am 17 years old, and I am like 117 pounds, and I'm like, "What the fuck? What the fuck were you thinking?" And I'm around all these guys, and my interaction with guys prior to the military was never good. It was always cantankerous, and it was just, I had a lot of fear because it was like, is this person going to try to fight me? Like, is he going to try to call me a faggot? Like, is he going to make fun of me and try to embarrass me? And like, all I am is surrounded by dudes from all walks of life, which I had never experienced before. That setting. And I remember we had to drive down from Richmond to Paris Island in South Carolina. And so it's a pretty long trip. And the guy, it was like about 4 or 5 guys that was in the van together, and three of whom were like best friends. They all went to the same high school. And then it was like me and another guy from DC, and the other guys were from Richmond. and there was like a few other people from like Maryland. And on our way down, we had bonded because we didn't know what we were going to get ourselves into, and we ended up in the same platoon, and like that experience was like one of the best experiences that I'd ever had. Like not only did I get through that experience, but like I coming from that experience, I now see why people join fraternities and sororities, because there's something about this brotherhood and this band of like this emotional cathartic thing that you go through with someone, with a group of people, and it just brings you closer together, and it is a bond that like really sort of is very very hard to break. And I yeah, and like I was there, and I was with dudes who like weren't trying to fight me, and they weren't calling me a faggot, and it was just like, and then for the first time in my life I learned about discipline. I learned about accountability. I had a sense of pride in myself that I never experienced before. I mean, I had people in my life that told me they loved me, but like I was constantly questioning my worth. Something that still happens to me to this day. Um, and so when I was 19 years old, we were in our MOS, military occupation training for our specialty. And we were stationed in Lawton, Oklahoma, and I'd never been in Oklahoma before. We were on an army base, and so you had a bunch of Marines on an army base. It was a little contentious, and so we would have school during the week, and then on the weekends we would go to this Super 8 motel, and a bunch of us would rent out like several rooms in this motel, and just like it was like a house party, like a dorm house party in a fucking sketchy ass hotel. And I remember me and these two other guys, we got this woman cab driver to buy us a bottle of Bacardi 151. And me and those two guys proceeded to drink that entire bottle, like like straight, no mixer. And I threw up. I made out with one of those guys, and I tried to fight the other guy, and it was like one of the best nights of my life. Like that whole, like all of the self doubt, the insecurity, all of the worry. Am I good enough? Am I cute enough? Am I smart enough? Do I sound manly enough? Am I sounding too gay? All that shit went out the window, and we would go out and we would drink on weekends, and it was a lot of fucking fun. It was a lot of fun. And even then I could see bouts of what's the word I'm looking for? Bouts of like no self-control when I drank. Like I didn't really like the taste of alcohol, but I love the effect that it produced. And there was, and I wanted to get that feeling that I had gotten that first night. And so about 2 years into the military, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was still very much a thing. And I had ended up meeting this guy in the military, and we fell in love, and ended up getting asked to leave. And I just didn't know what to do with myself. Like I didn't, my whole direction, like my whole, like the purpose of me going into the military was so that I could get the Montgomery GI Bill. I was going to do 4 years, get the Montgomery GI Bill, get the fuck out, go to college, and then from when I was in college, figure out what I wanted to do with my career. That was my whole entire plan. And 2 years in, I'm kicked out of the military, and I'm angry, and I'm bitter, and I'm resentful, and I felt like I wasted 2 years of my life, and I was just like, this is fucking bullshit. And the relationship didn't work out, and I was just like sort of flailing. And I would drink occasionally. I would drink on the weekends, and things were still pretty much controllable. And I decided that I was going to go. I started working in retail, and I had become a assistant store merchandiser, and I loved it. I loved it. It was like, yes, this is it, because I've always been in tune to fashion, and I always wanted to like be somewhere within arm's reach of the fashion industry, and in a career in fashion. And so I ended up applying for the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, and I ended up getting in. And it wasn't until I got in that I realized that, oh shit, wait, you need to be discharged honorably, not general, under honorable conditions in order for you to get your fucking Montgomery GI Bill and all of your benefits. Thanks, DADT. Um, and shout out to Biden who just reversed that. So um, yeah, shout out for that. And so yeah, so I got in, and everything's going well. I'm drinking on the weekend still, and my um sophomore year of college, I gotten diagnosed with HIV. And like the first semester sophomore year, and um it was just a huge blow, and I didn't know like what to do, and I was afraid. And my drinking had progressed, and I remember telling a friend that, like, I'm gonna live life to the fullest, and I had no idea what that meant. And my drinking had picked up like twofold, and I was going out, and I was going to after hours. And if you ever been in New York City, like, the bars close at 4 a.m. They'll serve you a drink at 3:58 a.m. And then after 4 a.m. when the bar closes, then you're in a fucking taxi, and you're going to an after hours, and that after hours don't let out till 9 a.m. And then when you get out of that after hours, and you're going to somebody's fucking house. Um, and so I I, with the help of my family, I was able to pull myself together. And and that first semester, like, I used to have like this little tape recorder, and I would sit it on my desk, and I would just pass the fuck out and listen to my professors later on in my apartment. And I yeah, I was able to pull myself together, and I ended up graduating. And in between college, I would come back to DC, and I would work at this place called the Fox and Hounds. Shout out to them in Northwest DC. And it was like a squirrely bunch of like waitresses and waiters and bartenders, and it was a lot of fucking fun. And they would serve you like these little mixed drinks that was full of liquor, and they would give you like these little mini bottles that you can make your drink as light and as strong as you wanted it to be. And because I used to work there, they would give me like pint glasses of like liquor. I would ask for like a vodka cranberry, and it'd be like a blush pink color. And the weekend that I graduated in May, I came back to DC, and I hooked up with a bunch of friends, and we're drinking, and we go back to my friend's house. And he pulls out this white powdered substance on the table. Now, I am from DC. I grew up in DC in the 80s and 90s. And in the 80s and 90s in DC, crack had ravaged this city. There are a number of men who are in jail currently and still. A number of families whose homes have been broken up. You can walk around DC now and still see remnants of what crack did to this city. Especially with the homelessness and with the mental illness that is all around the city. And so I was always deathly afraid of drugs. Like, I always knew, like, don't do drugs, don't go near it, don't touch it, whatever. I mean, all of my friends when I was in high school smoked weed, and I was super afraid. I mean, I knew how to roll a blunt. I got very proficient in that, but I would never smoke it. I never smoked weed in high school. Partly because I was afraid of what drugs could do, partly because I didn't want to lose that control and end up outing myself, and lastly, because I've always known that I've had an addictive personality, and I just figured if I started doing it, it would be something that I might not be able to recover from. And so they pull out this white powdered substance on a mirror, and I am like, "What is that?" And my friend goes, "Oh, it's cocaine." And I remember there was this guy that was there, and he had never done drugs before. And so he got on his hands and knees and he snorted a line. And I was like, oh, okay, well, he didn't die. And so I got on my hands and knees and I snorted a line, and it was like love at first snort. Like I absolutely loved like the entire feeling that like when you watch a movie and like the protagonist, like the coming of age movie, and the protagonist does a drug and it is just like pew 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 like that's exactly what it felt like for me. And um and I knew it. I knew by the end of that night, I knew that that was going to be a problem. I knew that I had stepped over a line. And I yeah, and I just, well, and I had all these rules to it too. I was only gonna do it on the weekends when I was drinking. I was never gonna do it during the day. I would never buy it. I would always do it if somebody else had it. I broke that rule. I started borrowing money from it to purchase it. I started doing it on the weekdays. Like Friday, Saturday, Sunday turned into Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, which turned into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then turned into Monday, blah 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 blah. And it was completely unsustainable. Like cocaine is very expensive. Uh, Even if you get chummy with your drug dealers, cocaine is still very expensive. And I worked in fucking retail. Like I couldn't afford that fucking shit and pay bills. And I remember I thought that it needed to be. I couldn't get it together. And my drinking had increased, and I started working in a bar in DC. And when I got back to DC after college, I went back to New York, um, back for the summer, and then I came back to DC like right around Halloween weekend, in 2007. And DC was a lot of fun. There was like a lot of like good like fucking like all these like dive bars and like these like great like DJs that were playing, and it was like this musical hub, and it was like the 20 somethings of that era, like the late 2000s. um like it was just a lot of fucking fun, and I just didn't remember DC being that fun. And I remember because I was like going to go back to New York. I was like, I'm only going to spend a fucking month here, and like fuck this shit. I'm going back to New York. Like DC can't hold a candle to New York. And it was a lot of fucking fun, and I had so much pride in the fact that like my city was a lot of fun. And so I'm going out and I'm drinking. I could barely go to work. um and fast forward to I'm partying and I'm partying, and I can't hold down a job. Well, I was able to hold down a job, but like I didn't have an apartment. Like I didn't have my name on a lease. I was couch surfing. I was technically without a home. And I hooked up with people who went from cocaine to crystal meth. And right around when I was like 35 in 2015, I started smoking crystal meth, and that brought me to my knees. And so I'm already riddled with insecurity and fear and ego and hopelessness, and then you sprinkle crystal meth on top of that. Like, what the fuck were you thinking, dude? And I you know I was like, you know by the end of my run. And oh, by the way, I am not taking any sort of antivirals. I haven't been to a doctor since I've been diagnosed. I'm having copious um unprotected sex with people and not disclosing my status. um and I remember I ended up coming out with my status on Facebook. It was like this really long Facebook rant, post drinking and drug use, which I'm actually kind of proud that I did that. And it was one of those moments where you like hit send and you're like, oh shit, like how can I jump into the ether and get it back? and and but I'm glad that I did it because it was a step forward for me when it came to complete and utter honesty, which is something that the program that I work is like. You have to have honesty. You got to be completely um, open and willing and honest, in order to get through the things that you need to get through. And I so I went from being a person who was afraid of drugs to on my hands and knees on a dirty kitchen floor looking for shards of crystal meth. I went from a guy who